All right. All right. Andrew, Jason, Praneeth, Jonathan, really, really excited to welcome you all. So really appreciate everyone going through and taking the time to talk through the chat. So yeah, let's kick this off. And yeah, let's get that stream intro and we'll get into today's automate all the things. Yeah, really appreciate it. All right. Welcome. Really excited to the 16th Automate All the Things live stream. Few names I recognize, few I don't. But really excited to welcome you here and kind of talking about one of my favorite tools, Parabola. So Parabola just raised a bunch of money, but I like to say I was a Parabola fan way before it was cool, and so really excited to bring you kind of a throwback to some of the earlier streams where I would spend a lot of time playing around with Parabola, and I realized that I'd never done a workflow where we write back to Airtable. And so today our goal is going to be really to take data we have in Airtable, go to another tool, get some analytics there, and then bring that back into Airtable. And so Parabola is really useful to do that. So essentially it lets you sync different sheets or tables from different tools. So today our objective, I have all of my Webflow information here. So if you've never been to my website here, it's essentially just taking this CMS. This is where I host, my essential guide to Airtable, and there's these classes, essential guide to Airtable, where I have all of my course information is here. And so what we're going to try to do is bring in the number of page views for each one of these classes into my Airtable base so I can get a sense of which courses are popular. Now, this isn't a great use case, right? And normally you can just have this information live in Webflow, but frankly, I don't have that many kind of CMSs that I could sync to. But you can see, number of sales in Shopify and then bringing that back into a third-party system. Maybe you want to sync MailChimp with your Shopify sales. Really, once you understand how Parabola works, you can really do whatever it is that you like. So hopefully the goal for today is not for you to go out and then get analytics into your Airtable base, but really you understand Parabola so you can go out there and do whatever you want. Cool. Does that sound like a good objective for today? So let me know in the chat if that makes sense to you. And I'm also realizing that for you to chat, you actually have to click out of YouTube and then go into the chat, I think. And I appreciate when you do that because it gives me a sense of how things are going. Cool. Okay. So, our agenda today, what is Parabola? Parabola is a tool that lets you sync different tables together. So essentially takes any API call, brings it down to a two-dimensional table and then uses logic to merge those tables together and then send information to third-party systems. So all of that sounds very theoretical, but in about 30 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that with a relatively simple use case. Okay, so first, our Airtable base overview here. We have a very simple, mainly just text fields, and I'm actually going to go ahead and delete these views. That's where we want to get to. And so essentially, I have all of my course information, right? So you can imagine this being the blog post that you want to run. So if you ever have your content creation process in Airtable, where you can imagine you have, the URL, the slug, that URL where you're sending it to, some information from Webflow when you created that record. So, the video link, this is the YouTube where I host my course. So really just kind of CMS information, right? So CMS being your content management system, but you can imagine this being inventory, tweets, Facebook posts, whatever information you're trying to kind of manage. I only have the output here. And our goal for today is to bring back some information, which is views, which lives in Google Analytics, right? If you're not using Google Analytics, think of any third-party system you're trying to wrangle and get data from. Really, so all you need to know for this Airtable base is the slug, which is the URL where this course lives. And then there's a bunch of information I'll kind of walk through throughout. So if we go into our Webflow CMS here, this is just the same information in Webflow speak, right? So title is title. Slug is this right here, right? So I just took this, I exported, but again, this could be the end of your content creation process. So if your goal is to write a blog post, well, this will be where your blog post lives. And then you essentially have that information that, this is a down system from your Airtable base, and really is just so that you can show this information on your website. So really, there's nothing kind of for us to learn here, except that this is whatever your CMS system is, but did want to show you that. And eventually, if we have time, interest, and energy, I'm happy to show you at the end how you can actually close the loop of, actually making Airtable a way to push to Webflow. Maybe I'll just show you high level how to do that if I have energy. Okay, so what we want to do is actually, I'm going to open up analytics, right? Is bring this little behavior, site content, all pages, right? Let's give it a second to load here. This is looking, right? So this is the page views data. So this is looking over the last, week, how many page views we've had of each element of my course. So this lives in Google Analytics, and what we'd like is for it to live in Airtable and to be synced permanently, right? I'm not a Google Analytics expert. I'm but a mere Airtable somewhat expert. So really this is just, that first data point that, I thought of, but feel free to kind of share what other data points you're trying to get out of Google Analytics or any other third-party system, and kind of use that as your base. Cool. So we're trying to get this data point. So I want essential guide to Airtable /intro 32 /intro right here, 32. That's our goal. It really sounds crazy, right? We're just trying to get this number to here. And it's going to take a third-party tool, a bunch of work. In the abstract, it sounds stupid, but hopefully I'm glad that there are other people who find this interesting, but myself. Okay, so essentially kind of steps to success here is we're going to import our Airtable data. We're going to import our Google Analytics data into Parabola, merge those two together, based on this right here, that page, and then export that view count to Airtable. And if all goes well, and I have no promises that everything will go well, we will have our view count, which we can sync per hour, per day, whatever it is. And hopefully you'll be able to take this and sync whatever it is that you want to sync. Okay, makes sense? So please X out of YouTube, go to the chat. Let me know if that makes sense for today. Happy to answer any questions. And with that, I'm going to jump into Parabola. So here you have everything that I've ever built in Parabola, and we're going to add a new flow here. All right, Colleen, sounds good. Awesome. All right, blank canvas. The really the bane of no code's existence, right? Is that you come here and you literally don't even know what to do. So lay of the land here. Essentially, this is going to be kind of our workflow. So if you ever use Integromat, it feels similar, left to right. And essentially, we're going to kind of import and export from this canvas. So usually, you want to kind of drag and import. They've added these circles as a onboarding here, but luckily, I'll onboard you folks. It's really jarring when you think about it. Like, oh my God, there's just nothing here. So first step is going to be importing. Let's go ahead and import our Airtable information. So import Airtable. Pull from Airtable. They've changed the language from import to pull. All right, so let's configure that. All right, I need to authorize. There's going to be a few moments here where I need to kind of hide my screen. And I've built this little automation that can make this really quick. Okay. All right. So all that I did there was I just put in my API key, and that allows me to get my base ID. So base ID is, if you go into the help API documentation, it's actually right here. It's also a nice little green right here. Whoop. Base ID, and then table name, that is course. Whoops. There we go. Show updated result. I'll show you at the end. It's a very stupid Alfred app automation. Okay, so essentially now we have our Airtable table, our table from Airtable in Parabola. You can see ID, it maps. Well, ID, you don't have it explicit. This is the record ID. This is a little tip. If you ever open up a record and you want to get its record ID, it's here in the URL, right? So that's the record ID. You also have the ability to use a formula field, which is just record ID, and that'll return in the field itself. So if we search for this, see, we see that record, right? So that's our record ID. When you call the API, it makes it explicit. So it's funny how I'm showing you this like 40-minute automation, and then everyone's just really interested how I get the API key to my clipboard. I essentially just write AT Airtable, and then it says copy Airtable API key to clipboard, and then I have it to my clipboard. I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so now I have my two-dimensional kind of Airtable base. Nothing really too super interesting. One thing you'll note is that you actually need to have a value in each field for it to be returned in the API, and that's what you'll notice at the beginning. I put a little 10 here just so that I know that there's at least one record with a value. That way it returns in the API. But that is just a tip for you to know, so that if you're ever not sure why something is not coming back, that is why. And now my Chrome is crashing. Uh-oh. Okay, can everyone still hear me here? Oh, okay, we're back. Apologies for that. Okay. All right, so now that's step one. We've imported our Airtable. Now let's go ahead and pull in Google Analytics. Pull from Google Analytics. Let's drag and drop onto the canvas. Let's make this a little more friendly here, like that. Pull from Google Analytics. Authorize. Okay, thank you, Ethan, for letting me know. I had a little bit of a Chrome lag there. Okay, so essentially, what's great is that this kind of reporting, this ability to reach this exact report, is pre-built in Parabola. So if I go to behavior, site content, all pages, right? That is site content, all pages. This is the report, the pre-made report. I can then import that. So it's going to give me some metrics. Let's show updated results. This should look very much like that report that I was looking at. So we've got the page view, unique page views, and a bunch of other kind of analytics here. Really what we're interested in is these page views and then this page, right? And then, so now we have both of those tables in Parabola. And this is what I was talking to you about. Essentially, you can say, okay, every day at midnight, at 2 a.m., get that table from Airtable, get this table from Parabola, and here, that time frame, we're just doing 1 week. And then now we're going to work around merging both of those together and then export that information to Airtable. doesn't matter what your tables are. There's probably a way to import. I'd love to know in the chat if you have some ideas of what you're trying to import. We've got Andrew from the Parabola team who will be more than glad to tell you if it's possible. Okay, so now essentially what we want to do is merge these two things together, right? So we need some commonality between the two tables to be able to merge the information and take information from one table and then send it to Airtable. So I need to find a way to say, okay, well, this row in my Google Analytics ties to this row in Airtable. Now, the commonality between the two is this little URL, right? So essentially, when I look at, it says Essential Guide to Airtable, where we're going, formulas. So that is my key from one table to another. So if I can say, okay, take formulas, this right here, or I can point it to, and then find formulas. Let's search, right? Formulas. Introduction to the formula. Where is that new? Right here, slug is formulas, right? So if I could match the URL on one side to the slug on the other side, I'm going to be able to merge those two tables together. So now our challenge is that the slug is not formatted in the same way as the analytics, right? So I have slug, which is formulas. And then if I look at Google Analytics and I search for that same information, formulas, right? This says Essential Guide to Airtable /formulas. So what I would love is instead of Essential Guide to Airtable /formulas, we turn that into just formulas. And this is very common across systems, kind of thinking of like, what is going to be that one thing on one end and that other thing on the other end that I can match together so I can send data from one to the other. One example of this that, is an example is item ID is what would let me go from Airtable to Webflow, right? So this item ID is defined at Webflow, and it's very useful, just some best practices here. If you are going to be sending from various systems, one thing I do recommend is always sending the record ID to all systems. So if you're going to make Airtable your central place and you're sending to MailChimp, make sure that when it's in MailChimp that you're also saving that record ID so that if you're ever syncing across things, you can always use record ID as your kind of key between different systems. In this case, Google Analytics doesn't care about Airtable, never heard of Airtable, so we need to use something else, which is going to be that slug, which we're going to edit and kind of match to how it is in Airtable. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. Now what we're going to do is essentially try to get all of these into the same format as we have in Airtable. However, I'm just going to clean this up by removing every single everything that doesn't start with Essential Guide to Airtable, because that's the structure, right? So those are what's related to my course. So we're just going to filter. So writing out filter, remove rows. Boom. So now we're just going to remove input 1. Why is that not giving me input 1? Remove rows. Input 1. Okay, how do I see the configuration options? No input data. That's weird. Okay, let's just dump it. Okay, let's do rows again. Okay, insert rows. There we go. Let's send this to here. Oh, I want remove rows. So I want filter. Filter. Okay. Let's send that there. All right. I don't know what happened there. Let's act like that didn't happen. Okay. So include rows only if they follow. Okay, so I want my page include rows if they contain. So then I'm just gonna, what I'm typing here, you can't really see it, is only contain that initial essential guide to Airtable, right? So actually you just want courses essential guide to Airtable, right? So this is what I want to keep. I want to remove everything, you know, such as /signup, /video. I only want to keep, you know, /essential guide to Airtable. So our next step is actually just to remove this essential guide to Airtable. And the reason is, you know, I want this formulas, right, to be our key to formulas here. So I want it to match this exactly, and that doesn't include that section before. So what I need to do now is, you know, do some editing here and just create a new column that is take all of this and then remove this part. That's fine, Andrew. It's fine. It's fine. We good. We good. It worked. And now we want to edit. So it's going to be string, I think. Extract text from column. There we go. Okay. So now what we want to do is we want to take page. New column name is going to be page slug. Operation find all text after. I really appreciate you guys making this like really simple for folks like me. So it's just like a drag and drop. I remember this used to be like actual like regex and things. This is really fun of just like dragging and dropping. I could see it getting annoying as well as I do this more often, where I just like, I want to, you know, do that quicker. So I want first and last won't really matter in this. Matching text is going to be / essential guide to Airtable. So ideally, you know, our new page slug is just going to find this and just output filtering. And that will, you know, let us merge it onto slug in an API export and, you know, get to that. So show updated results. Okay. So page slug here seems like completing our first base, right? Page slug. Let's make sure we have that key here. Doesn't seem like it's matching exactly here. Oh, that's not the right. Let me check. Filtering. Page slug. Filtering. Oh, there it was. I missed it. Again. There we go. Filtering. Okay. So it seems like it's creating the right field, right? So instead of looking here, I can actually just go, you know, can I find first linked record, for instance, right? I know that that's a course title. I should be able to find that here. Right, here we go. It should be in our slug here. Slug, there we go, first linked record. Okay, so now that we have a match, we have slug on the Airtable side, and then we have slug page _ slug. Let's actually go ahead and merge those two tables together. Join tables, I think it's called. And we're going to do a left join. So to explain so combine tables, not join tables, combine tables. Right. Let's do this. So we need two of those. We need, okay, it's assumed that that one was the first one. Combine the other table. So now I have two tables. So our primary table is going to be pulled from Airtable. And what that means primary is, you know, we're going to merge onto, so we want to keep all the records in our Airtable, right? So we can export to Airtable after. So our primary table is going to be Airtable. And then we're going to do, I guess this is like a left join, keep all rows in the primary table and only matches from all other tables, right? So we're essentially going to say, okay, keep that Airtable because we're going to be exporting to Airtable, and then merge that data from the other table onto Airtable. And we want to rows that match. So page is equal to page rows from each table if page is equal to slug. Now this isn't page, it should be slug here, page slug, right? Okay, so now we see our Airtable. So this is the record IDs and all that. And on the right, we should have our information from that Google Analytics, right? So page views, if there is a value here, means that there is a match, right? So we have that page view information now in one table. All of this is currently living in Parabola. We don't have anything living outside of Parabola just yet. So I have page views. I have all that data, average page on time, entrances, bounce rate, all that information. And so now what I want to do is export this information, right? These page views into Airtable. So how we do that in Parabola is essentially, use a API export. So Parabola has some direct integrations, right? I think with Shopify, namely, Webflow maybe. No, Webflow has no export. So the import is automated, but the export is done via API. And this is where things get dicey, where I have to do an API call live, but I think we can do it. I do have a cheat sheet just in case. So we're going to send to API. So how I like to think about this is essentially it's going to say, okay, for every row in our table, what API call do you need me to run? So thinking about this, what I wanted to do is that for every row in that merge table, I wanted to find the right Airtable record and write the number of page views from that table into Airtable. So this takes a little bit of copy pasting, not necessarily a lot of knowledge around programming, but just really, some skills, some good copy pasting skills. So we're going into our API documentation. I'm going into my videos table. And what I want to do is I want to update a record. So, I'm not going to read through this, but essentially this is saying, do a patch call. We want to just do for one. Do a patch call to this endpoint for this record, right? And then update these fields, right? So that's kind of the structure. And so we need to replicate this structure in Parabola. And what's great is that Parabola will handle all of the timing, all of that infrastructure around getting this API call to work, making sure that we stay under limits as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So kind of thinking of this structure, and let's move it to Parabola. So first thing is a patch call. So it's not a post, it's a patch. API endpoint. We're going to take all of this. Actually, it's a course table that I want, not the videos table. That could have been embarrassing. Same structure though, like that. Right? And when I look at what endpoint do I want to call, I want to endpoint the ID, right? So I don't want it to call this record specifically. This is an example for one record. I want it to, when it's doing those API calls, to always replace that record ID with this one right here. So how you specify in Parabola to say, okay, when you get to that row, take that value that's in that specific field or column is to put it between brackets. So I'm essentially saying, take that ID from this table, and that's what's going to tell this API call to find the right record to update the right page views, right? Then from there, what is our body of our call? And this is essentially kind of taking this JSON. We're only going to take fields. So let's just take fields. And this is asking, saying, okay, which fields should we update? So the only one we want to update is views. So let's go ahead and take views, copy paste that. So here copy pasting that. Now, we don't want to put 10 for all views, right? We want to put the value that is in page views, right? So this one right here, right? So let's go ahead and page views. So selecting that, let's put page views. So now it's going to go to the right record, hopefully, find the right page view and update that value in Airtable if everything goes well. I need to authenticate. So I'm going to go bearer token. I'm going to hide you for a second, do my nifty little copy paste API key. Okay. Bring you back. Okay. And if all went well, this should work. Now note that whenever you're actually doing the calls in Parabola, you can't just like test it. It's just going to say, hey, you know, is this the right JSON? Seems to be working, but you never know with Parabola until you actually set it live. So it seems like everything is working. So let's go ahead and publish. Run now. The odds of this working are quite low because I'm sure I messed something up. So let's run now and keep our fingers crossed. Gonna get a glass of water. Okay, that's good news. It didn't fail. Let's go to here. Okay, updating. Here we go. Seems to be updating our information from, you know, it's pretty cool. I'm not doing anything. I can see it updating. It's getting that information and updating. Cool. So I'll be honest, I'm pretty proud of myself. I was not expecting to get this on the first try. Cool. Okay. So now we have our page views in Airtable, right? So this is, let's make sure this connecting Airtable to your tech stack with Zapier. This seems to be 6. If we were to connect your, let's just give 50 here. Let's find, there we go, 6. That matches what we have here and updates accordingly. So last step here is, you know, you can set a timer for this. So, you know, I can say, okay, run this Monday to Friday at 8 a.m. Set this at midnight, whenever you want, to really keep, and it'll pull live analytics data from analytics, and then, you know, pull that information into your Airtable base. Cool. So just going to take a moment here. Happy to answer any questions, you know, and before maybe I'll just quickly outline how to send to Webflow if anyone is interested in that with the button field. But would, you know, just let me know if there are any questions before I jump to that. To chat, you have to exit the YouTube thing and then go to the chat. If you're in Periscope, you should be able to chat as well. Hey, Andy. Cool. Okay. All right. So just quickly, how I would send to Webflow. I will just, let me just go into Zapier. And we're going to create a new Zap. And what I would recommend, just quickly, what I would do, and I've done this before on the stream, let me close this out, is how to, I would insert send to Webflow. Let's do a little button. And we would do a URL, and essentially what we do is a webhook. So catch hook, continue. So let's copy this. And we want, let's say, record ID. And what we would send is that hook question mark record ID and record ID. Save that. And let's call this send to Webflow. Okay, so if we open this, it's caught that webhook, right? And I'm not sure if I should have an equal here. Equal. So essentially saying, okay, this is the record ID. This is the information I want to send to Webflow. Save that. Let's do that again. Okay. If we go into, we have a lot of tabs open. Continue. Test trigger. Okay, it found that record ID. And then you just go into Airtable, find record, continue. And this one is called live stream 16. And then essentially search by field. Oh, table is going to be course. And then we're going to get search value is going to be query string. And then it should pull up that record. Oh, I gotta figure out a way to, okay, I won't do this live, but you essentially have to, find a search by field. Do I have record ID? You will have to search by record ID in Zapier and then find that record and then create a Webflow new item ID or update in existing, create live item, update item, depending on what you want to do on that information. I'm realizing that this is going to be, so essentially, Jeremy, once you pull in the find record, right, you're going to have the item ID because it's in your table. So you're essentially saying, pull in all this information. You're going to have the item ID, and then you're going to know which item ID in Webflow to update. So for here, maybe I'll do it search by field, search formula. Let me see what the search. So search by record ID, Airtable Zapier. Oh, but I can look up by any other field, right? So I can also look up by title. So let's pass slug and slug equal. Sorry, we're getting into like the weeds here. I knew this was going to happen, but it's okay. We'll go through it. So let's catch that hook here. Okay. And then you can even search on that value as well. So if we refresh here, whoops, catch another record. Oh, I got to click on it. There we go. Here. Load more. There we go. Now you also have the slug, which we can search on. Search by field, slug. Search value is going to be like that. Continue. Should find it. There we go. Now you have all that data, video link, item, whatever it is, you're able to take that information and then update the live Webflow item ID with the information. So this is one manual way to send data from Airtable to Webflow. So hopefully that made sense. Thank you. I've never been called the man before on a stream, so that's exciting. Appreciate that. You just got the GP. You just got the send to Webflow. There you go. Send to Webflow. What do you mean? Where's our Webflow step? It's right there. You catch hook, find Airtable, send to Webflow. I have in the past streamed how to sync Webflow to Google Analytics. So if you actually check out a previous, I did the whole thing. So syncing your whole CMS ID, CMS items, and sending to. So I do agree with you. It is easier. GP is a good point of like, it is easier in Parabola to sync all items from Airtable to Parabola. Now, what I do like about the button is that I can say, okay, this is ready to be deployed, deploy to Webflow. So, and that's more of like a webhook functionality. Like I want this discrete item to be sent to Webflow. Whereas, what I use Parabola for and what I recommend is, okay, I want to sync some information in Airtable across all of my records with all of my CMS items, with all of my MailChimp subscribers. And so really for discrete webhook style, I'm Zapier. If I'm syncing tables, I'm Parabola. That's my view of the world. Cool. Okay, so I think that showed you at least the high levels of how to do it. I'll eventually do a video on it to send to Webflow. Cool. Okay, well, I'm happy to answer any questions here. Really appreciate you all taking the time. And I'll stay here for a few minutes just answering any questions if there are any. And yeah, thanks Andy, thanks Jeremy, thanks JP. Thanks so much for joining. Always super exciting. Let me know if you have any ideas for next week. I'm always looking for things I can stream or build. Thanks Ethan. Thanks for joining. Cool. I'm gonna sign off. You can reach me on Twitter, Aron Core, or comment below. Happy to answer any questions. Bye everyone. Have a good one. See y'all. Bye bye.